This is Resident Evil 7. We're here on Xbox Series S. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So there's a few different graphical modes when it comes to Resident Evil on Resident Evil 7 on the Series S, which is the first-person, intense, horror, redefined experience within the franchise that really kickstarted kind of the trend of gameplay that we currently have enjoyed over the last couple entries. So the first mode that we're kind of showing off here is the RT mode, the ray tracing mode. So this is 1440p, 60 FPS, and there is like a checkerboarding effect used across the board within the experiences. So this one is pretty good in regards to the performance. You might notice some dips here or there if you have VRR, variable refresh rate. You know, it kind of enabled. I think that will help in this particular option. There is also a option where you turn off ray tracing, and then it's just your regular kind of performance mode. So that would be, again, 1440p, 60 FPS, but you know, it's kind of smooth. And then there's also the high frame rate mode, which is 120 FPS, but with the 1440p. Keeping in mind that it doesn't really fully hit 120 FPS, you know, but it's still getting quite up there, which is rather exciting. So this was upgraded alongside Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. So it is interesting to see this one kind of taking advantage of similar technology and really pushing the Series S in regards to offering something that is comprehensive, scary, because, you know, it's a horror type game, especially in the first person perspective, and at the same time, really quite a good technical showcase of what the Series S can do, because if you have a Series S, you are probably used to varying levels of, you know, quality and everything like that when it comes to these updates. You really never actually know what you're getting with a Series S, but the Resident Evil franchise seems to be consistently delivering a pretty well put together experience and package. So this is the first full-length entry in the franchise to use the RE engine, which is, you know, Capcom's in-house sort of engine that really seems to be just kind of used across the board, ray tracing wise, you know, shadow tech, illumination, stuff like that. Kind of interesting. So for this one, you return to the horror roots of the franchise by diving deep into kind of like this first person perspective, where you play as this character trying to figure out what's going on as you explore this seemingly abandoned rural estate. You're trying to find out what happened to your wife, and you are moving about the environments, which are like, it's linear, but like, you know, you get play spaces that you are exploring, solving puzzles in, battling against some various foes, and, you know, kind of trying to survive within, which is, you know, pretty creepy in this one. Like, it's kind of menacing. It definitely, there is an element of, like, you know, confronting these members of this, like, family that have become, you know, a little crazy. And then there's also, on top of that, these other more advanced elements of, you know, messed up creatures and whatnot that you have to deal with along the way. So you are also just, like, straight up a regular citizen in this one. You're a person that isn't, like, you're not equipped for what is happening to you, and you're kind of embracing it and trying to just deal with the situation that is present here. It's, you know, it's Resident Evil at its core, right? Like, it's a Resident Evil title. It's got all the trademarks. It's got the special little bits of crafting. It's got the gameplay. It's got the modern elements of it. It fits right in line with the remakes as well, which is nice. And it's just something that offers a relatively interesting experience in terms of the environments, the gameplay, the story. You know, you are in this really messed up place, and then you get these neat perspectives that you get to experience, these shifting, you know, kind of story elements that get context into kind of what happened, what is happening. Kind of a cool element. And, you know, there's hidden surprises, and there's big bouts of horror, as you get scared and deal with, you know, monstrous things, right? Like, it's Resident Evil, but it is a little bit more true to the roots of trying to scare you. You know what I mean? It's a lot less, like, some of the Resident Evil games were getting a lot more action-packed. So this was a bit more of an attempt to reground the franchise in the tradition kind of elements. And there is a number of like DLC experiences, as this will like kind of add to the overall narrative, and then it does kind of directly continue within Village, which comes after this one. So this one is something where it is kind of like, you know, you can enjoy it by itself, but it also does expand further if you know, kind of choose to do so, which is rather interesting. But yeah, it's kind of a cool story setup. I think it is a little, I don't know if tragic is the word, but there is a lot of really crazy things going on in this one, and there is a lot of like surprises within the story of Resident Evil 7. Like, it is kind of a big mystery. Like, you're just some regular dude going in and trying to find out what happened to someone you love, and like dealing with just this traumatic series of horrific events that are, you know, going along the way. It is kind of wild. And then it's essentially, I think so, it has kickstarted the direction of the franchise going forward, which is the first person setting. I do ponder if we will see a return to, like, I mean, the remakes have obviously, you know, they're staying true to the whole third person perspective. And Village was neat because they give you like a third person mode as well. But I do ponder if we will see a continued just first person because of how well this one went, or if we're going to see a bit of a mix, or what's going to happen with the series, because it is rather intriguing to see how this one has evolved and changed over the years. Because, you know, Resident Evil definitely was, I don't know if losing its way is the correct kind of framing, but like they were definitely trying to capture a larger audience. And then I think by kind of doing a little bit of a reboot in terms of style and stuff, I think it actually hugely benefited the franchise, as we're seeing it, you know, come back stronger than, you know, it was initially. And I think that's kind of fascinating to see. And then, you know, the Series S here again, talking about the console specifically on this platform, it really, to me, it feels like it is punching above its weight class in regards to, you know, 2, 3, and 7 in particular, which all got upgraded around the same time. It really is quite a fascinating, you know, sort of upgrade for this platform. I mean, obviously the larger console there, the Series X, it looks, you know, it looks fantastic, everything like that. But the Series S, usually the mixed results you get from games, and then this title just kills it, really. You know, the game looks fantastic. It looks detailed. It looks very sharp. We're switching over to the regular ray tracing off performance mode here, just so you can see this one in action as well. And then obviously we'll have the high frame rate at the end there. Trying to show out some different segments too within the framing context of the situation. But yeah, no, it's the full level of like geometry, the full level of gameplay, the full scope of everything in regards to, you know, having a very detailed environment. You know, it's got like the classic saves, the classic plants, but it's got like a really weird sense of eerie atmosphere. Because, you know, being in first person, I think it opens up a lot of ways for you to kind of like hide and cower and, you know, sort of use the environment to your advantage, use the environment to allow you to shift around, get to different paths, and then you just see like this really almost like grotesque, destroyed, messed up place where everything is like rotting, just like the, you know, the residents of evil. But, you know, the people that reside within this environment, you know, they're as kind of messed up as like the world they're in. And it's neat to see that reflective sort of styling of it, where it's like, this is a creepy place, you know. It's a terrifying place. It's not a safety location. It's, will you survive? Oh, and the loading is so good in this. Like, it really, really genuinely is. Like, it's such a neat kind of game in terms of just like, it's so Resident Evil, but it's so different too, which is neat. And you get like these cat and mouse type chases, which is funny because I was just talking about Resident Evil 3. But you really do, like, you are you know, you're not like on the attack. You might be used to some of the, you know, more intensive Resident Evil games where you were like on the charge, you know, bits of scares here or there. But this one, it's sort of like you are, you know, terrified of what's going on. You are like, what is happening? You know, you've got like a gun, not much ammo. You've got like a knife. You got some like weapons, some blunt objects and stuff. But like you're dealing with these people that just like keep coming, and there's like nothing at all that you can really do against, you know, things. I mean, you get your moments, obviously, right? But like, you really are just kind of like this regular dude that is just like, what is going on? And you're just like hiding in these ridiculous spots, and you know, they've got these really nice like cinematic bits, and you know, the lighting and everything is so well done in this too. No, like kind of no matter what modes you go for, it's just like really visually quite impressive and very detailed. Like this engine is miraculous what it does for the console platform, especially for Series S. And this mode here is just kind of that ideal, looks good, runs well kind of mode for the platform. Like I think you really do get something good here as you're just trying to like, you know, scavenge, survive, figure out what's going on, try not to die, try to figure out the puzzles so that you can progress a little bit, find the hidden places, the hidden sequences and stuff like that. But like I think most people that are like taking a look at this will be really pleasantly surprised by it because it just looks so good, you know, and it runs smoothly, right? Like you get so many like kind of, well, Series S titles that are just like, you know, Series X is all cool and stuff, and Series S you're just like, well, you know, you could do better, right? And then this one, it's kind of, there's no question here. It's like no matter what way you go about it, you're getting a really refined, well-tuned, well-crafted experience. And that's ideal for games. Like, I mean, I don't think it's too much to expect. And so many will just be like, oh, the Series S, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, you get something like this, it's really, really good. Oh yeah, and it's just so like, every scene and like every set piece in this place is just so well tuned and messed up looking. What a genuinely creepy franchise. Like I don't know if anyone really expected it to be like this when it like I mean, they were showing it and they were teasing it and it was interesting. But at the same time, you know, I think it was a little out of, you know, out of nowhere, if that made sense. Like it just kind of was like, hey, Resident Evil's back and it's different and it's a little bit strange now. And then it's just like, you know, it snowballed into this big thing where everybody's like, yeah, this is the way to go about the Resident Evil franchise going forward, which is, to me, just like a crazy concept. Because like I remember, you know, it was scary, it was spooky. And then it was just kind of like really actioning. Like Resident Evil, like if you haven't played Resident Evil 6 and you're like looking at 7, like you can play the different Resident Evil games essentially by themselves. As I did mention, though, Village obviously heavily leans on 7, and I'm sure the one afterwards will to a degree as well. But like, you know, if you play 6 and then you go to 7, you'll be like, whoa, you know, like just like tone and gameplay, like 6 is like, you know, it's, I want to say it's kind of got some scary elements or horror elements to it, but it's not like this one where it's kind of like terror is awaiting you around like every corner. You've got things stalking you, like the world feels grim and dark, and you know, you've got like puzzles to solve while you're being like relentlessly followed and chased, and it's just so intriguing, the stark contrast between the two of them is, it's just like mind-blowing almost. You'd be seriously, like if you play this one, you go back to 6, you'll be like, wow, this is so strange. But I do ponder, because you know, obviously we're seeing so many entries remade. I would imagine eventually they'll do, you know, 6's remake. I'm sure 5 is on the spoke, or maybe at the time you're taking a look at this, it's already out, or you're aware that it's coming. But like I would imagine that they'll do 6, and I am so really, really curious to see how 6 is like reimagined, if that makes sense. Like, will they dig into like the deeper elements? Will they keep the faster pacing of it? I really, really am curious to see where that one will kind of go and where that one will head. If it'll be more in line with this, or if it'll kind of go back. Oh, the light shadow puzzles in this one are kind of interesting. They really are, as they like open areas and stuff. Like, this one actually does make you think quite a bit, you know, for puzzles and stuff. I mean, that is the Resident Evil franchise. It's kind of sitting there being like, okay, how do I get to this next area? What do I do here? And I think that's really, really quite cool and intriguing, which is exciting. Oh, then we got the shift between the walls. Yeah, this is always fun. Sending me to safety, finally, after I've been wandering around in circles and loops and being like, what is happening here? Yeah, okay, so we're getting ready to switch over to the last mode in a sec here, which I think is actually really, really cool. So we're going from the performant kind of 60 FPS options to the high frame rate mode. So this is, you know, again, similar like for resolution stuff, but we're getting 120 FPS. It's more like 100 FPS or so, and it like fluctuates and, you know, goes up and down, but like, you know, it feels a lot more like natural, especially for aiming and movement, especially in the first person as well. So do keep in mind that like YouTube doesn't support 120 FPS. I can't record at 120 FPS at the current time, so it's kind of like playing at it and capturing it and talking about it. But like, just the fluidity and the control you get, particularly in the first person, just makes it feel a lot more natural to real life and how your movements and everything are. It just kind of allows you to interact with things in a more realistic and tense way. Like, it almost feels more gripping and scary because like everything is, you know, just kind of flowing in a more realistic way. It's hard to describe because we get so few like cinematic type things. Like games, you know, they're seeing more embrace the higher frame rate, but for like movies and stuff, we don't see that. Whereas like when a higher frame rate is used effectively, it can create a real sense of like sped up panic, because it is more real to the eyes. And in a horror title like this one, where you are in that first person perspective, it's really cool. I mean, it was neat in like the, you know, the remakes, the other 2 and 3 there. It was neat having a higher frame rate, but you know, in third person it's a little different, whereas in first person it's very visceral in the experience kind of moment. And I think that's just kind of really interesting from a frame rate perspective, that you are like in there and you are like moving side to side and you're like flowing and you're just trying to like, you know what I mean, you're reacting to everything in such a quickened pace, and it's neat to see that, but also not see like a big fidelity change as well is just really impressive, which kind of makes you think that the regular modes actually have a lot of like overhead to them in a lot of sequences, just because this one does hit such higher levels of frame rate. And it's like they didn't, you know, for a single player type game, they didn't need to do a super high frame rate mode. They really didn't. Like, most campaigns will not provide anything with high frame rate, right? Like, they don't really need to. And it is really nice that they are like pushing the technology in a way that they did. Like, they didn't have to, but they did anyways. And I think that's really cool, because it showcases that, hey, it's kind of nice to have these extra modes, and it's kind of nice to see the Series S actually being able to provide this sort of thing. Yeah, it's really, really awesome. So, like, in general, Resident Evil 7 is really great. You know, it's a great horror title. The story is well done. The surprises are fun. There's all these kinds of like mystery elements to them. There's a lot that you'll have to like figure out. There's a lot you'll have to see, and it's just interesting to see it all kind of like play out. You know what I mean? And then there's also the context of extra, you know, story bits as well if you want to expand it. I don't know what version you're grabbing, but you know, the DLC does actually expand the story in interesting ways. And then if you want to go further with the story, there's, you know, Resident Evil Village that comes after this and does directly tie into it. But you can enjoy this as a standalone game. You can have fun with it. You can explore within it. You can try to survive. It's pretty cool. It's pretty well put together, and I think you will kind of be delighted by what this one has to experience, especially if you're on the Series S, where it's like, you know, few games really take advantage of the hardware, but Resident Evil 2, 3 remakes, and then this one really do hit the mark quite well. At least I think so.